Don't see your chat, just let me know. Louis or Jason will help me out. We do have a couple more people going to be joining here, so I don't know exactly what time they'll be in, but you may have to hear me repeat like one or two things. But the biggest thing about when we're going through this, put all this stuff on mute, is biggest thing of when we're going through this is if I kind of go over something that you want to have more detail on, just write detail or be like, hey, you skipped something that was really important, or just be like, hey, you're ignoring something that you should have spoke about. So let's get started. Everyone good? Thumbs up? Team's good? All right. And then this is also a part of it's recorded. A lot of times we don't do our discussions and the recordings. So we'll edit that out and stuff like that. But so if you have any questions or you want to send like a picture of your kitchen or whatnot, just let me know and we can actually dissect it. And I'm gonna be going through an actual project that we did that we finished up. I think we started in 2022 and finished like early January 2023. So I'll be going through an actual project. And then as well, we have a gift if you haven't received it yet, if I haven't met you in person. Otherwise, if I met you in person, you may have got it, unless if I forgot the folder. All right, let's do this. Oh, we got two more coming. We'll wait on that, and then we'll get started. Okay, so hello. For those that don't know me here, I am Justin. I am from the greatest land ever, Elk River, I guess. I have a couple team members here, Louie and Jason. They will be helping me kind of like make sure if you're writing anything in the chat. So a couple things that we just want to keep as a reminder. One is that there's not a stupid question. I think it's kind of funny with all the HGTV, and my wife and I were actually discussing this, and she right now she's finishing a design meeting, so she may pop on. Um, but it's funny because like you can there's so much information out there, and you know you have ChatGPT, you have AI stuff coming on. There's all these cool tools, and I think what ends up happening is it actually clouds and it creates this awkward. I don't know if it's like confusion, but there's so much you can do that when we come into a situation, the biggest thing that we're trying to bring is clarity, right? Is a clear vision, clear direction, because you can even have really great drawings, but the drawings may not, once when you put it together, may not make sense. Or another thing that will happen, something that will, you know, you see something on Pinterest or something, and that's like, oh, this would be great in my space. But then you find out either what you found isn't either good quality sometimes, or the other part is it's actually like the installer or carpenter is like, wow, that's really complicated. So today what we're going to do is we're going to get started on where to begin on the journey if you've been thinking about kitchen remodel. And let's start off here. And like I said, feel free to write or anything as I keep going. And I am super excited that you're here. This is gonna be fun. So let me find my buttons. I think I got it. Okay, I think this will work. Let's do that. And if you're driving or something, be safe. Okay, so here we go. Welcome to where to begin on the kitchen journey. This is probably one of the most sought out things. I'm going to try to tackle some of the most common questions that I get. So really briefly about me is my wife and I run XtraMile Construction. I do the contracting side of it, right? So codes, trying to dissect and put together the puzzle pieces. My wife looks at the puzzle pieces, says my ideas are dumb, and then she puts her design side on it. We casually, kindly argue, and then we find out that neither of us like don't want to live alone, so we find a place in the middle where we get along. And so a lot of that you're gonna see today is between I'm gonna try to express some of the concerns that we were having in a couple projects that we saw. And actually my one of my customers, if they're able to be on, they just got I had a special guest that the person that we're going through the project on, if she's able to get on, we'll go through and we'll ask her some questions about the process. And one of my favorite things about this customer is that they're really blunt. So, and I'm learning to have thicker skin as I go through this. So, anyways, my name is Justin. My wife is Jenna Ariella, and my project manager is Will. And then me and my dad own the company. My dad started the company back in 2016. So, but he had a previous company called Bakken Building and Remodeling, was based out of Big Lake for over 25 years. 2008 happened, right? So we lost that first business in 2012, but he had about 2,500 customers that were still in contact with him. So we did side projects. So I actually been in the industry and trade since I was a kid, going to job sites and stuff. But I actually had no passion for what I'm about to talk about. I swore I was never going to do this. I thought I was going to be like a missionary in Guatemala. So as soon as my wife and I, we've been married for almost 11 years. As soon as we got married, we met here. She was adopted from Guatemala, and we worked in Guatemala off and on for about 7 years. Technically, still do to this day, but we worked with kids in high-risk situations. I lived in Guatemala City, and we I don't know. We did like a 3 month honeymoon, and then we ended up falling in love with an area. So we worked with kids in higher situations. It's called the terminal, so it's like a bus terminal area, and we helped kids and youth get out of high risk situations and give them alternatives. We worked with two different organizations while we're there. One was an organization that worked directly with like street youth, and the other one was street youth prevention. So we would actually be on the streets from like 8 a.m. to about 7 p.m., helping lead teams, local Guatemalan teams, and then also teams that were coming from the US and other parts of the world that were doing medical missions and stuff like that. I am actually not that great at Spanish, but I had enough that I could loosely translate, and they let me hang out. And but my wife obviously can speak Spanish and stuff like that. So now what do we do? Besides remodeling houses and doing things like this, we have an organization that we remodel children's homes. So right now we're finishing up our second children's home remodel. We did one last year for kids with special needs. We created an office space, all that stuff. We can get into this later. Let's go a little bit more into this. So before I get started, a little bit, I don't know, I should probably find that slide. Hold on 1 second. I think I really made this perfect and then I adjusted it. So just a little bit about us. I'm going to show my website quick, just so you can kind of get an overview. I mean, typically people research a lot, so I'm not going to go over too much, but basically, this is who we are. This is we've been able to start creating really beautiful spaces, and a lot of it happened when we came back from Guatemala in 2018. My dad was building two new homes. The culture and the situation changed quite a bit where we started utilizing technology, and he didn't want to use technologies, and it was cool because a lot of our customers really liked it. But once when we got beyond the referrals, what started happening is the client needed a lot more connection, communication than what he originally was providing. So basically, it came to this point where he started getting into other opportunities within the construction trade, and also my mom's business. My mom has an in-home care business. She takes care of ladies with special needs. She now has, I believe, 5 houses, 26 clients, and then a couple team members. So that started taking a lot of his time, and so a lot of our construction and remodeling projects started to kind of not, we still had a lot going on, but it was just a time change. So by that time, I came back from Guatemala. I was working with them for about 2 years. I was a project manager. I took over. He gave me about a 3, 4 weeks heads up. So I took over actually this month in 2018. So that's 6 years. So I'm starting my 6th year in running XtraMile. And but a lot of the things though that you're seeing here, right? So we have some additions, some kitchen stuff. This is a commercial remodel, kitchen is I've done over 100 kitchens, and I didn't believe in photos. I didn't take a lot of photos before and after. And then once when my wife joined more in 19, 2020, we started taking more photos. So that's just a little bit about us. We've been able to see and do a lot, and we're so appreciative. And I'm gonna be as open as honest as I can through this next one. Here we go. Everyone still with me? Everyone doing good? Did I get enough about us? I feel like we can always go through that further. Okay, now am I sharing my right screen presentation wise? We'll just do this. Okay, so one of the things that we really want to do, right? And some of you guys, if you're on here, you've already done some of this. So I'm gonna kind of just recap, right? So first and foremost, we want to talk about the renovation versus relocation, right? And I am not your real estate professional. I am not in any way giving you legal advice. I should probably give like a little disclaimer thing. I am simply here to try to help people from point A to point B today. So one of the first things that we want to do is that you really want to analyze what would it be to if you were to move, right? So a lot of my customers, the customer that I'm going to be showing you one of their houses, they were in their home, they were second generation and they live on the Mississippi River in Big Lake, have a beautiful property. And they they basically took over his parents' house and they weren't able to take care of it anymore. But it needed like there was some major remodeling that needs to happen further than just the kitchen, but the kitchen's where we started. And so, but the first time I met with them, they were like, "Oh, like yeah, we're gonna keep it a house and stuff like that." And then we started talking about the remodel, and we started talking about the numbers. They're like, "Oh my gosh, there's no way I am going to be able like we should just buy a new home for what we want to do." And so we created this checklist, right? So basically, it's the do not haves and the do haves and the could haves. And this is something I think a lot of people really overlook when they're starting to think about their current home, right? So we're looking at, your neighbors, location, the property, and then also the biggest thing sometimes is like if you're to buy what you're looking for, typically if you live in a city, you're going to have to move outside the city another 20, 40 minutes. And then if you purchase your home at, 300 and now it's worth 400, 500 in some cases, you have equity built up, but then also you're like, okay, once when it comes to the time my kids are a little older and I can start having what and creating home the way I want it, is this where it's going to be? So a lot of times that we're finding is people really love where they're at. And to build or whatever, it's just not as convenient because as soon as they build and they think about that house in the next 10, 15 years, they're going to have to move back closer to their family or friends. And so this is kind of one of those conversations that we start having a little bit. But so one last thing is before I get started, if you know any trade partners, right? Roofing, siding, trim, tile, all those different things, please let me know. And we even have a special guest today from our electrical team, from Matt Sanders' team. Kendra is here. And so what we're trying to do is, to be honest, we're just trying to connect good people with good people. And that's one of the things that you're going to see as a common theme is the right team can bring out the right results, even if the vision isn't quite there yet. And so um, one more thing is since you are here, we're going to give you, if I have not given this to you yet, we're going to give you this really cool checklist that we created. So it's on the bottom of this page. And if the page loads, so we have like the beginning stages of the checklist, which I'm going to go over today. And then we have the finer checklist. So Louis, if you want to drop this link in there, or you guys can use the QR code. So Louis, if you want to do the QR code and the link in there, the biggest things that you want to get into here is on page, where are we? 18 to 27. This really goes through, like a lot of the little details that we want to get to. I wouldn't start filling it out quite yet, but this is just a good list that you can take and put onto your other, copy and paste it into a spreadsheet or a drive, Dropbox, whatever. All right, let's get into the good stuff. Everyone following along, we're doing good. So thank you so much for being here. This is something that we created to start just bringing the language a little closer from contractor, client, designer together. Okay, let's do this. And all right, I am totally lost at what I was supposed to put up. Okay, there it is. Okay, so why does a well-planned kitchen remodel Crucial. Okay, so this is the thing. If you're looking at the investments of your home, right? You got typically the most expensive things to ever touch are kitchen, bathroom, stairs, and then if you're doing some type of addition, right? And the reason why is because they have the most trades involved, and also like the kitchen typically is never just a kitchen. It's usually a kitchen that ties into other parts of the house, and then all of a sudden you're trying to figure out where the kitchen and the remodel start and finish. So let's go through a little practice run here. So this is the house I was talking about. This is on the Mississippi. So as you can see, she has stuff everywhere, right? I don't remember how many kids she has. I think it was like four, three or four. I think during the project she was pregnant with her fifth. And what was happening is like she moved in this house. They originally, when it was just her and her husband, it was good. And then all of a sudden they added one more person, added one more person. And the other thing is like the style and aesthetic of the house was just not what she was going for. So one of the first things that we really had to deal with is the layout. So if we're gonna come back to this page here, we're gonna go straight into this. So the layout was a huge issue. Um, so their current layout, what you saw in that photo, is that they had an opening here, this wall here, and here. So this is actually a bathroom here. This is their laundry room. Their laundry room door is like right in the middle. And then this corner wall was cabinets. I'm going to go back to it. And so this area here was unoccupied. I don't know how to spell that. This is space not used. Well, let's do that. Space not used. So this was a 3-season, kind of 2-season-ish porch-ish thing that they had going on here. And so when we sat down with them, and then they have like a living room, a fireplace over here. So when we've originally sat down with them, their kitchen goes like this, and then they have like this weird island thing, and then they have like cabinet. So the problem was is that when they're going to get ready for school and doing like normal stuff in the morning, is that as soon as they would get done for breakfast and stuff, there was just not a lot of countertop space, and there was not like a centralized, organized area for them that they could not like there was just wasn't congruency, and things were just piling up, and they love to host. They have a very, very big family, and their house is the central location for hosting. And then they have like the river behind them, they have a pool, whatever. So what would happen is that all of the kids' stuff, when people drop their stuff off, because this was like not really used space, I'm gonna show the picture. All of their stuff would end up in the living room on a bench, and there's like a door here to a deck. Everyone following along? Is this making sense? So what was happening is like the people would come in, kids would come in through here, bring their stuff, drop their stuff here, eat at the table, and then they would leave. And then she would have, at the end of these parties, she would have just so much stuff, and cleaning was just a huge hassle for them. So let's go back to the photo. All right. So here's the before photos. As you can see, we have the range here. We got it's not, this kitchen actually had a lot of space, but it was the way the cabinets were made in place that just added to the awkwardness. And the other thing was it wasn't her spec. So the very first thing that we had to figure out was the layout. And obviously you're seeing the layout as it is now. But what was happening is that this here was a load-bearing wall, and she did not want a header or anything in here. So this is her house actually ends like this. And then this is the garage. So what would happen is that we really thought like, okay, what if we brought the kitchen over in this corner? Or sorry. So what if we brought everything down here and created one giant island here? And then this can become like the dining room area. So when you walk in, you have like dining, wet bar area here, and then the kitchen area would be down here. That was the first idea that they had that they were stuck on. And that was a great idea. But the thing is, the basement wasn't, it was, I couldn't get to this area really easy. I had to tear up things in their basement, which was the finished basement. And the other part was the windows. There's a lot of windows, like trying to figure out how to utilize this weird window. in front of, so they originally had it where we weren't opening up this. You're coming through here. All the kitchen was going to be shifted around. So is everyone following me here? Following me? Okay. You got one private chat thing. You're doing good. Okay, whatever. Thank you. So my point is that a lot of times what you want to do is they already were talking to a designer, and every time that we would look at, like, they had like a friend that was a designer. So every time that we were looking at this drawing, what would happen is that when we created the kitchen down here, the island turned out great, but the flow from the outside where the like where this like where people are coming in from the house, and then also this is over here is like going into their bedrooms and living room. What would happen is that the central location, no matter what we did with the island, it always ended up being in a walkway. And the designers were telling us, "Oh, this is great. Like this, this layout is the best thing that you could do." And they're like, "You can't." Because we couldn't figure out a place to put the range. So once we axed this idea, where the old part was that we had a range that was going to be here, and then she had double ovens, so the double ovens were going to be here, and her island was going to be just really it was just going to be a long, narrow it was going to be a long, narrow thing like this. So basically what she had. Then we had no place for the fridge, all that stuff. So, anyways, when we're going through these, if you have a pen and paper, the first thing that you want to write down is the when we're going through the pros and cons list, before you talk to a designer or anyone, is getting your layout already. Not, you don't have to have a perfect layout, but the current house. So if you have floor plans of the house, current images of the house, all those things, you want to start creating a Dropbox file or a drive. So one of the ways that we do it, right, is that I have two different ways. Is that I created a Dropbox file for people's projects here. So like I have the estimates of 2024. We click into that, and then each file I'm creating a Dropbox for the project itself. And I'm getting it off of paper and I'm putting it onto something that is tangible. So that when I'm trying to get an estimate from people, because this is where the budget part comes in, is that you have so many opinions. I'll go in there, someone else will go in there. They're like, oh yeah, what if you do this? And then all of a sudden you get all this confusion about a project that really, a lot of times kitchens, the house starts to reveal what it wants. But if you have so many opinions and ideas and you're not keeping the information of what you need correct and you're not writing it down, you'll get influenced left and right to all these different things. So let's go back to here. Let's get on here. All right. So when it comes to planning, right, budgeting and setting expectations, the first thing that you want to do is get your checklist ready. So if it's something that you already have, but making sure every time that someone comes into your house, that you're just simply, how do I do this? You just simply, hopefully you can see this on the screen big enough. Here, we'll just go like this. That I don't like that. Let's go like this for the screen. So what you want to do is you want to have your pros side and the cons side, and then you want to have down here suggestions. So whenever you're talking to a contractor and they're giving you their opinions and ideas. So for example, like on this one of the pros of the old layout is that they would have a ton of cabinet space, right? So in here I'd put added cabinet space, and then I would write, whose idea was that? That was Jason's idea. And then underneath that, I would put the cons is the usable flow of the house, like the usable flow for the kids sucked, right? So that also, unfortunately, we're going to use Jason's idea. So whenever you're getting opinions and ideas, this is a great place to start, especially with you and your spouse or significant other, about when you're starting with the job, because then you can start dissecting it little by little. We just want to do the first steps. This is the first step. And then the other thing that I would always suggest doing is you can do it on a piece of paper, pen, whatever, is getting a floor plan layout. So if this is my kitchen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the dimension here. So I'm going to get the width dimension, which let's say it's 12 feet. And we have another dimension here, which is 12 feet. And I'm gonna do my pros and cons lifts with the drawings here. And the only thing that I put on the drawings are the things that I know are absolutes. So for example, if I know I don't want to move a window, I'm gonna put, I'm gonna make a little sign thingy here that says, window. I'm gonna put a thing here that says door, put a thing here that says window, and then I'm gonna put a thing here that says opening. So when you're doing this, the reason why this is important is that everyone's getting the same information, so you're not getting decision fatigue by the first 6 or 7 days that you're making this, especially if you've already been thinking about it for like a little while. Okay, everyone following me here? So the first start of planning is the pros and cons list. And then once when you get kind of this, you start putting down the contractor suggestions down here. So this is stuff that you've kind of decided on. Thank you, Corinne. Nice thumbs up. Um, so then down here, right, you're gonna do what is some things that the suggestions, moving the sink, right? Putting an island in the range. Sorry, putting the range in the island. And then you're going to start building out a full checklist. So then by the time that someone like me comes in, that I can see and I can enter into what your thought process is so that what you're saying and what I'm going to give you starts to match. So this is one of the first things that we do with our customers. Not every time, sometimes it's not as needed, but this is, especially if you're at the beginning stages, this is a great place to start. All right, is this helpful? People following along here? And I promise you, if people would do this right here, this would solve like why you're getting an estimate that's 80,000 to 200,000, why you're getting a like the scope of work, everyone has like once we get this down here, then what you can do is you can move to the next section, which is where the budget hits up here. So let's go like this. That's the wrong button. Shoot. All right, like this. Oh, make it white. So let's use this one more time. So this is why it's important. So when you have your pros and cons list, right? So you got your pros, cons list here. And you have the suggestions, right? So this is that paper here that you have. So once when you have that, then over here, you can start working on the scope of work. So you want to have two pieces of paper or a drive or something that says pros, cons list, suggestions, and then the scope of work, right? And then this is where your quotes start coming in. So if you're somebody that's getting, estimates that are all over the board, it's because the definition of your pros and cons list, the contractor isn't able to enter into what you're thinking. So best way to do this, right, is in the scope of work, you're taking your drawing, right? So you're going to take your drawing and then your suggested stuff that you have there, and you're going to put it together with your scope of work drawing. And the pros and cons checklist is for yourself, and then you're going to start working, even if you're working with a contractor, right? You want to make sure that the drawings are starting to fit and feel. And when you get the drawings, there's only you're not getting all the electricians. Who should be a part of this? So the person that should be a part of this first one is the decision makers, right? So who are the decision makers? You, your spouse, right? The decision makers first go through the scope of work and the suggestions. And this is for a larger renovation. So if you're talking about over 100,000, this is what you want to do. And then once when those things are decided on, and you don't need to have your full layout and all that stuff yet. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about what you don't want to move and what your biggest deciding factors are. Then once when you get that, then you can bring in your GC, right? Your general. And then the next one that you want to do, once when your general / designer, right? So why not just one? One is typically because your general is not creative. They're the project managers. They're the ones that, depending on how much you're doing and they're doing, they're the ones that are helping you guide and find the errors before you get it. So for example, one of the biggest things that we had on this one was the hood vent. So let's screenshot this or whatever. We're gonna come back to this. I'm gonna save this quick. And we will be just got when will this be done? That was very kind of you on saying that. In a little bit. We're almost there. Once we get past this, it goes a lot faster. Thank you for asking. So I'm gonna put this in the chat quick just so that we come back to it. All right, is this helpful? Everyone understanding what I'm trying to say? Yeah, okay. So now that we have these things here, we're gonna go back. We're gonna use this awesome thing, but we're gonna go back to the drawing. So if you can imagine here, what I was doing here with my writings is that I was doing the pros and cons list and then I was putting it on paper. So then when people like Kendra and Matt, so Kendra is a part of our electrical team that we partner with, Matt Sanders, right? So by the time that they get what they need, they can start quoting it out because a lot of times you can get so many walkthroughs way too early, and they're thinking something's happening when it's not a defined space. So like when Matt joined in on this project, we waited until we had a decent amount of information to give him versus getting him out there like the day of. Because otherwise, the biggest, I want you guys to write this down, the biggest miscommunication you'll have in your project is new and old information. The biggest thing that we argue with on my thing is the changes. So for example, and Kendra, you can chime in if you have any thoughts or questions on this, but or if I missed it. But basically, the thing that we want to make sure is that when we're starting in the once we start into this phase when we're getting some of the drawings from the contractor and designer, is that we want to make sure that everything has a date on it. And this is something I don't always do great, and my team's getting better at is we want to make sure that we have dates starting to come in so that we can be like, oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. Oh, weren't we going to move the island a little bit more? Note it, right? So everything that you have needs to be notated and on paper. Otherwise, it's not real to the contractors. They'll be like, oh yeah, well, we can figure that once we get there. Then they get there and they forget because they're helping 80 other people. And the small business game, there you have to remember, like me, Matt, like these guys, all of us, we're it's not that we're bad people, it's just that we're learning to juggle and help people in a world that's changing very fast. And for what we do between technology, guys changing, in my contractor class, they had me raise my hand, like, hey, raise your hand if you're gonna be in the industry for the next 10 years. And if you're not gonna raise your, not be in the industry in the next 5, 10 years, don't raise your hand. Out of my contractor class of like 70 people, almost I think there's only like 16 of us that said that we were planning on being in the trades longer. So the job, you have to realize that the demand is rising, but with communication and all that stuff, a lot of we haven't changed to the technology side of it. I mean, we're trying our best, but that's something that's happening. So what happens is the change order conversation gets happened in here, and then Matt and Kendra are getting an old drawing of the kitchen that used to be down here when now the kitchen's up here. And then they come to quote it again, or they don't hear from me for a while, and then they show up, they're like, wow, what the heck happened here? You literally changed everything. So that's why the pros and cons list and then the scope of work is so important. Is because once when you get these parts in with the general designer, is the timeline starts, right? The timeline in their mind starts. And it's not like, even if you're not doing your project for a while, this is just a really good reminder because you want to keep it fresh. You want to keep everything that you're doing fresh so you don't get the decision fatigue. All right, is this making sense? So let's go to the contractor designer. When we're doing projects, the biggest argument that we typically have is the general and the designer, me and my wife. Or other people. Because what's happening is that I'm looking at the logistics, right? Yeah, Corinne knows. I'm looking at the logistics. She's looking at the style, right? I'm looking at the budget after the homeowner. Homeowner wants and needs. So All right, is everyone following me here? We're doing okay? We're gonna start going really quick. So now that we have the pros and cons list, the scope, and the workshop, like the general design drawings, then you bring in you marry together a designer and general contractor. And if you can get a design build, great. Really quick, I don't if I'm not selling you nothing. I'm just telling you, I've walked into so many projects that this is not defined, where these two are not seen eye to eye because they speak a totally different language. General speaking code, specs, and selections. The designer speaking the specs and selections in a different way, but they're not looking at the code. So one of the things that we had to really communicate and decide was how big this island was going to be. She was asking me to get an island that was the largest one that we could find without taking over their living room. So, let's see here. Let's show you some photos here, and then we're gonna go through. So, what started happening, right? And if you want to write this down, this is great information to know. So, how much space should you have between a fridge, island, range, all that stuff? So, between a fridge and an island, you want 42 inches. That's your goal. If it's normal cabinetry or sink or whatnot, or like on this wall, you want a 36. So anything that doesn't open or a dishwasher, a non-congested area is 36. And then a walkway, you want 38 to 42. This is what our target is. And so that's where you start first to get an island, to know how big your island can be or the width can be, right? And sometimes every house is a little different. Sometimes you go narrower and stuff like that. So my point is that so in this project, the biggest situation that we had was once when I moved the hallway. So if you're looking at this, I moved the hallway to over here, was how big the island can be. And the problem that we kept running into is the aesthetics of the island versus the usability and what she wanted. And she was not wanting a cooktop at all, but she wanted a range that was freaking, 48 inches wide. So there was no way there was really no good solution on where we could put the double oven. We tried to put it over here, but then it got too wide. I mean, it got too much space into the island area. So what we ended up doing, is everyone following me here? Why this is important? I think so. This is what it ended up being, right? Beautiful, one of my favorite kitchens. But so if it would have just been my wife in this conversation, what would have happened is that um the the space here, in order to make her island and everything that she wanted, the space here would have been really shallow and really not enough. The other thing that would have happened is that the sink would have been placed in the wrong place because the windows and the sink, there was a lot of plumbing issues. And so if we wouldn't have caught that earlier, the customer would have got a change order. The other thing that we needed to know and made a mistake on is that there's actually a beam. This ceiling, I don't know if you can see this, actually has a vault. So our cabinet makers, when we first did our walkthroughs, had no, like, we did all these drawings and things like that. And this cabinet maker, we couldn't fit the fridge that they originally wanted, that they found and designed, because the ceiling height was actually too low because it has a vault in the back side of it, and then it changes above, like literally it changes right here. So just a couple examples. There's also some other code stuff. The other thing that happened is like the hood vent. This was a huge one. So in the design, this hood vent here looks great, right? Hood vent, how many people have ever seen a hood vent up in a ceiling before? Besides on Pinterest, right? It's not very common. So this hood vent, in order to do this, the original hood vent was actually dropped 14 inches because above this was a ceiling that we had to work around, right? So this was one of the biggest arguments that happened on the project, was how we're going to get the hood vent up in the ceiling. And so at the time of this project, we like budgeting this project was a total nightmare because I couldn't see anything. Things were constantly changing, and we didn't take the pros and cons list seriously, right here because we kept saying stuff that were on like it was on her non. Maybe we should add this. Her non-negotiables. I don't know how to spell that. Negotiables. Ooh, that looks non-goals. Non. Anyone want to write that in the chat bar? Negotiation. I don't know how to spell it. All right. Anyways, must-haves, because one of her must-haves was or her husband's really tall was like not an island uh hood vent that goes into the way of like whatever. But so that so her hood vent, as you can see here, thank you, team member. Nice. Let's go back over to this. So add to your list here. Non-negotiables. All right, we're gonna land the plane here in a second. Non-negotiables. So when you're coming in here, right, you got your pros and cons list, your scope of work get created, and I'll help you through this a little bit. We're doing an overview today. And during session 2, we're gonna get deeper into this, but this is a way that you can start catching issues before they happen without getting too many people involved and clouding the decision fatigue and all those things. Everyone following along here? We're making sense? I got one yes. I hope this is, are you getting value? Maybe type the word value so I know that we're doing okay. Corinne, thanks. Appreciate it. All right, we're gonna finish up here. So the reason why these are important is because HGTV, all those things, you can get lost and there's just so much information out there. So if you take away anything from today is get your pros and cons checklist, get your scope of work checklist, and making sure that what you're getting is what you're asking. Like you're giving the same information to the people as much as you need to. All right. So let's finish up. Louis, you made an incredible presentation. I got sidetracked a little bit. I apologize. We're gonna still go through some of this, but all right. Let me I don't know why this is staying up. Let me try this again. All right, my hand keeps being raised. I don't know how to lower my hand. Okay, so let's go through the final stages of this. So once when you get the first set of checklists, right, and we're looking and you're accessing the needs, you're looking at the visualizing of the space and you're starting to create something, what I would really strongly consider you doing today is on Dropbox or Drive is start creating projects, so like in my Drive account, right? Let's not show you my password for this. Um, 1 second. So in when my clients and customers are working together, and who won't, is we're creating vision boards, right? So if we're looking at Canva is a great tool to use. Louis, do you mind if I do this quick? So I'm just gonna show you guys. I think this would be really helpful because I know I see a couple familiar names. I know kind of where you're at. So what a couple really good things to do, and you don't have to go crazy about it or nuts. Just you're already taking screenshots of Pinterest and all that stuff. And I wish my customer would. She said she was gonna try to hop on so we could ask her her stuff. But what you want to do is eventually what we want to get to, right? We want to get to from vision boards. So I have, let me see my vision board here. So this is a kitchen that we're working on right now. Don't look at the name. What we're going to start doing is we're starting to build out the things that she likes and loves. But if I wouldn't have got that first checklist, I wouldn't be able to start pricing out her project, right? This is one that we're starting here in a couple weeks. And so in order to get the budget, now let's talk about money. How much do these things cost? If you want to get a defined scope of work cost for a project, for ballparks and stuff like that, you get your pros and cons checklist, like I said, and then from there, you're giving your contractors or your guys who you're going to work on the same information in a language that they understand. Does this make sense? Because that's a lot of the times like you'll get, oh, like I don't know. So once when you get those things, now there's less room for interpretation. Kendra's like, yeah, right. Like me and Kendra, we deal with this on a regular basis. Is like I'm telling the homeowner, hey, this is what's going on. She's hearing from the homeowner, oh, we're doing this. And there's like we want to make sure that we're eliminating any questions and making it foolproof. And some of the ways to do that is a vision board. Another way to do that is obviously your drawing. And then once we get to those things, your approximate cost of work starts to funnel down, and the approximate cost of your project and the cabinetry and all that stuff, you start to see what the budgets really start to look like. Is this everyone making sense? Is this making sense? I'm not, if I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. It's just I'm doing my best here. Um, this is great. Thank you. Thank you. I got so many fans in the audience, so many quiet ones in the audience as well, you know. It's all good. Nice. All right. Let's finish up. So where do we go from here, right? Um, so based on where you're at, let's pull this back up here. So we got the assess. We're starting to visualize the space. We're getting the vision board with contractors and people understanding what you're truly needing. And then from there, you can start setting the realistic budget, right? Most of our kitchens are anywhere from, they typically, I haven't done like, I mean, I've done one that was 75. But typically it's not the kitchen. It's because it touches the living room. It touches every other space. So that's a part of that scope of work is what's being touched, who's doing what, and having that clearly defined. So when you're getting quotes and approximate cost, it's up front. And then realistic timeline for the remodel, right? And like, so if you're looking out in the future, you're starting to get these things together. I'm going to show you one more tool that we use that's really a really good tool. Before, and I'm not like, I'm just going to show it to you. So one of the things, if you've met with me, I've talked about this build.com. Let me log in quick. Yeah. So one of the things that you can start doing once when you get your sizes and openings and stuff like that is that then you can start I should have hid the contract my customers' names. Oops. All right, we're gonna go to here. So once when you start getting, and this is where the designer and contractors start helping you. But once when you start getting those different things, now you can start looking into the fun things like all of these kitchen sinks, everything that you need. Build.com, if you want to write this down, build.com is one of the best places to work with that we found because of their warranty and pricing is like, I don't know, it's just not like retail, whatever, but it's like the best thing about these, the reason why we asked for this versus Home Depot is I'm going to show you just a quick comparison. So for a sink, right? Super important for your customer, I mean, for your contractor to know, countertop guy. So here, the specs and selection sheets typically are in English and they actually have sizes like that are in inches, right? So my guys can install this. So a lot of times with light fixtures, this happens all the time, is that you find a light fixture, they give you an install sheet, and Kendra, what language is it in? Or is it something that's easy to understand? Is it right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. So, and in Home Depot and stuff, it's not like any of these things are bad. Um, but but a lot of times they don't the specs and selections that you're coming with are partial, and we just found that the install guy and stuff like that from Build is really good. And you can also download it from like their website and stuff. But the thing is, you want it easy, accessible. All right, we're gonna finish up here. You guys have been on for a long time. Maybe write one of your biggest takeaways. I'm gonna finish up with the final stuff. All right. So if you have a pen and paper, this might be a really, really good thing to write down. Um, let's talk about this. All right. So budgets, right? What you want to do is finding a designer that either works with a contractor or has current and up-to-date things that are within the home remodeling. Like for us, whenever we work with a designer, they have to have like if I'm partnering with a homeowner, I have to know what they are good at. Some people, they're not good at layouts and stuff. They're not like a lot of designers. They can create beautiful things, but most of the time, their cabinetry won't work. Their electrical and plumbing won't work for code, and their sinks are weird, all that stuff. So one of the things like we have so many arguments with the designer. So if you can get a design team and a contractor or a designer that works with a contractor on a regular basis, or contractors, not just homeowners, the success rate will go through the roof. Uh, on shameless plug, one of my favorite people ever is Melissa Matthews. And obviously my wife, I don't know where she's at. I think this is it. I should find her on Facebook quick or Instagram. Hold on. So you can get it and see it. One of my favorite designers, there's Wallaby Way is a great one. Melissa Matthews is another good one. Obviously, my wife and I, we we're okay. Um, but really quick, if you got take a screenshot. So Melissa Matthews, I have done numerous projects with her. Super, and she doesn't just work with me, right? This is not my kitchen. Super detailed. This one's my kitchen. Super detailed, and she gets the code stuff. That's what I love. Her spacing for her kitchens, and I don't have to adjust too much. This is one that we're working on right now. This one was a ton of code stuff that was going on, and she was able to nail like the spacing and stuff like that. So this is a great place to start, is someone who works together. So huge fan of Melissa. Obviously, my wife and I do it too. And what we do is that the design is a part of the whole project. So it's not an over and beyond. It's just like no matter if you work with us, you're going to work with Jenna or Melissa, depending on the size of your project. All right, finish up. So that's one of them. So once when you start getting a timeline, and maybe this is a little too soon for this, but is the budget part of it is coordinated with the timeline. Because if you're for us, if my timeline sucks on a project, I might as well not. I mean, it really hurts because I'm behind on 6 projects right now that I feel terrible about. We just had stuff happen. But the the budget and the timeline for the cabinet guys is almost directly coordinated. So cabinet makers, if you want to write this down, are typically a month and a half to 4 months out. If it's not that custom, the lower the timeline goes. Your kitchen starts when the cabinets you start your kitchen when you know the when your cabinets are going to be done or when their availability is to do a final measure, right? So that's a good one to write down. The other thing is that you want to make sure that you're setting the goals right for the different guys and that you're creating a specs list of either on Canva, Dropbox, that you're creating a file that's really easy to understand so that everyone is getting the same thing over and over versus when something gets updated and changed that everyone's getting that. So a system that you're doing a checklist that everyone's getting those updates. Is this making sense? Because as soon as you start doing that, the timelines will become a lot more realistic. A lot of, like on this job here, what we failed at with the timeline is that our design changed as soon as we demoed. A lot of the layout, the overall layout didn't change, but the final details had to change. So like our electrician had to come back and move a couple things. Our plumber had to come back and move a sink an inch over. So a lot of that roughing and stuff like that. Wasted a lot of their time, and then it wasted a lot of my resources. That wasn't fun. All right. Is this making sense? Everyone following along? Was this worth coming to? Is this helpful? All right. So Louis, if you can send in the chat the PDF for the checklist so they can download that and get that, and we'll send this to you in an email. But I'm coming up to an hour. That came quick. Whoops. And I feel like I could have did this a lot faster, but so just a couple final thoughts, right? Is future proofing the kitchen, right? This is one thing that is a really, I think, in order to not do your kitchen remodel again in 7 years, is to look at the trends, look at what's going on, because you can get something that's really trendy today, and then it'll be out of trends, and I can go through that in the second part. But what we're gonna do right now is if you have any questions on a certain aspect or a project or whatnot, I'll answer them. I'm gonna finish up just kind of the ending of this. And but before I do that, thank you so much for being here. Super appreciate you and thanks for being here. And the for the people watching the recordings, if you made it this far, congratulations. One thing that I was gonna say that I wish that I would have did a lot sooner is having not just text messages groups or email groups because those things get lost is like so for us we use an online project management system because when my plumber says something or needs to adjust something and my electrician needs to adjust something typically we're able to get them to connect early enough that we don't always have to readjust something on one project lately we definitely messed up on that but that's one thing too is having a work log of once when the guys are working and doing videos, walkthroughs, whatever, utilizing whatever technology you can through it. Another thing that would be that's super helpful is if you guys aren't familiar with AI. So what I have done is that I've actually created like if you have the paid version of AI, you can create like your actual projects and you can upload your files. I'm gonna go through this at another time, but for example, this is a kitchen renovation that we did. I can ask this question like, what is the tile for the master or the primary bathroom, whatever, and it'll upload it. So there's some tools that we use that we try to get to the guys and it'll actually say so but one thing you can do today is on some AI you don't have to use ChatGPT there's 100 of them but being like hey I'm thinking about a kitchen remodel um help me with the steps and right questions to ask. Right. So a lot of times after I'm done doing a scope of work and writing things, I'll ask ChatGPT, I'm like, what questions should I be asking about in this project? And a lot of times just little things like that will help, like if I don't have someone next to me, I need to answer quick. Utilizing technology to help and get those things rolling is something that you can do. I'm gonna actually go through that in a whole nother video, but so this is part one of a three-part series. What we're gonna do the next one is I'm actually gonna go through trade partners and people that we use on our projects, on our current projects. And I'm actually gonna go through the design process once when we know the general scope of work, where we're going. I'm gonna talk about the best ways that we found to get everyone information for them to receive information to make sure they understood the information and then also, with that, we're going to talk about in the Elk River, Minneapolis area. I'm going to go through some of my favorite people I've used, and a couple going more into the detail of the cabinetry. We're going to talk about cabinetry, some appliances next week. We're going to talk about more of the budget details, and we're going to also, depending on how much time it goes through, because those things go through a lot. We're going to talk about the differences between should you use tile, what kind of quartz. We're going to go through some of those just relatively industry specifics for the Minnesota area. So that'll be really fun. I think it will be hopefully my wife will be able to join on that one. So I'm gonna be done. Louis, give a round of applause, Louis, who helped me set up and make this really cool Kendra. Yeah, no problem. Louis helped me make this fancy, beautiful. If you want the slides if you want the slides, write me and we can get you these slides so you can go through them. it's pretty cool how, like for me, like I wish that I would have had somebody to do this with when I first started. My first four kitchens were uh they're total. I might go over my first kitchen that we did. My first big kitchen renovation was just so embarrassing, and thankfully my customer was really cool, but it was just we just had so many logistics and material things happen. But all right, if you have any questions or anything that you feel like I should go over next week, or what is it, 2 weeks from now for part two, let me know. Or anything that I should be able to do better at on this one, like not talk as long, just let me know.